Welcome to the Attention Deficit Disorder Expert Podcast Series by Attitude Magazine.
I'm Susan Hoffman, and you're listening to Attitude Magazine's ADHD Experts Audio. Life with attention deficit disorder is difficult. It's often marked by embarrassment, by apologies, by self-blame. We're sorry we're late. We're sorry we've lost our keys. We're sorry we can't keep the house neat. And all too often, shame is a huge part of the ADHD experience. We're very fortunate today to welcome Dr. Ned Hallowell as our guest to talk about how to overcome ADHD shame, why we feel it, why we live with it, and how to manage it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Hallowell.
Oh, it's really nice to be with you again.
Dr. Hallowell is a practicing psychiatrist, and he's the founder of the Hallowell Centers for Cognitive and Emotional Health. They are located in Sudbury, Massachusetts, and here in New York City. He is a frequent and very much sought-after speaker and the author of over 10 books, including the bestsellers Driven to Distraction and Delivered from Distraction, 2 books which I think it's safe to say were instrumental in bringing attention deficit disorder out of the shadows and into the mainstream. His website is drhallowell.com, drhallowell.com. Check it out for news about his upcoming appearances and speeches and lots of other great information. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Hallowell again with our thanks.
Thank you, Susan. You know, this whole topic of shame, and before I go on, I should also add, for those of you listening, what Susan has done for Attitude and the cause of ADHD is really amazing. She has worked tirelessly and with great dedication and devotion to bring this publication and the cause of ADHD to as wide an audience as possible. And she just deserves a lot of credit for hanging in there when the going was not so easy some years ago. And I'm glad, so glad to hear that we're reaching the ever-widening audience that ought to be reached. So in any case, the topic of shame in the life of ADHD is one of the most agonizing of experiences. It's really something that the children and adults can feel oh so deeply and really carry it forever. A fundamental sense of inadequacy and just a searing sense of embarrassment and humiliation, and to the point of almost developing a secret life. I have one friend who's actually won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, who will not invite people into her office because of the piles and the clutter. She's so ashamed, in spite of her amazing achievements. She's so ashamed of her inability to pick up. It's a terrible thing. My friend David Neilman, and he's given me permission to share this story, the man who founded JetBlue Airlines, and now he's founding another airline down in Brazil. Phenomenally brilliant, inventive, creative man. He invented the electronic ticket, and typical ADD idea just popped into his head. When he invented that, he said, everyone laughed at me. He said, no one will go to the airport without a paper ticket. Well, now we all do, and it's been a great innovation in aviation. And it is ironic that it's someone with ADD who thinks of a way for us to go to the airport and not have to remember to bring our ticket. But he struggled growing up with this condition, and the day JetBlue went public, in a matter of hours, he made a fortune, hundreds of millions of dollars. But he told me driving home that night, was I driving home to celebrate? He said, no, I felt like the same loser who couldn't hack it in high school. And this is the insidious problem that we really need to work to prevent. And it's why a strength-based approach to understanding ADD is so vitally important. When all you feel is the shame around what you don't do well, and you have nothing to sort of hold on to it, nothing positive to hold on to, you can retreat from life. You can sort of hold back on life out of fear that you'll make another mistake. and you can kind of live your life in a sort of defensive holding operation, whether it be professionally, personally, something as simple as having guests into your house. I have male patients who weep when they open their pocketbook because it's such a mess. They say, I'm carrying around my shame literally in my pocketbook. Students who pound their head saying, why did I have to be born with a brain like this? And then they try to stay silent in class, although they have trouble doing so, because they don't want to get embarrassed. Adults in the workplace who don't dare speak up at a meeting because they're afraid they'll misspeak or they'll have not heard the lead-in sentence correctly, and they sort of sit there white-knuckling it, trying not to be noticed, or then they do misspeak and they feel completely embarrassed. And this way of going through life from grade school on to adulthood, no matter how much success you achieve, like my Pulitzer Prize winning friend or David Neilman, no matter how much success you achieve, that feeling of being fundamentally flawed and of being at any given moment about to embarrass yourself, about to feel once again publicly humiliated, once again the brunt of the joke, once again the person who others giggle at, snicker at, and trivialize, demean. It is agonizing, and it is why, one of the reasons at least, why depression, anxiety, self-medication with various substances and activities are so common among people who have this condition. They are always on the brink of pain, and they feel it. It's maybe the most painful of all the symptoms or conditions associated with ADHD. Now, what to do about it? The simplest thing would be to change the world, but that's a slow process. So what to do about it in your own life? You really need to embrace a strength-based diagnosis, a diagnostic framework that acknowledges the positives that go with ADD, not just the negatives. And also, you need to get rid of what I call the moral diagnosis. The moral diagnosis, which is the diagnosis most people make until they understand ADD. The moral diagnosis says, my purse is a mess because I lack discipline. I'm late to meetings because I'm a bad person. I interrupt and misspeak because I'm again lacking in discipline. I can't stay with one project because I'm a flibbertigibbet, because I'm ditzy, because I'm superficial, because I'm stupid. And these moral condemnations just mount and mount and mount, and people carry them around like an anvil. I'm bad. I'm stupid. I don't have what it takes. I'm a loser. Can't tell you how many adults come to see me saying, look, I'm basically a loser. There's no hope for me. I can't get my act together. And they've been told from as early on as they can remember, get your act together. And they try, and they try, and they try. One thing I've learned about people with ADD, they don't give up. They're unbelievably tenacious. They keep trying. It's one of the reasons I love them so much. I should say we, because I have ADD myself, we don't give up. We keep on trying. We take a licking and keep on ticking, and sometimes it can be kind of pathetic to see us keep trying the same failed method over and over again, but we do keep trying. But that moral diagnosis, which so many people buy into, society at large buys into it, does a colossal amount of damage, Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should say to yourself, well, I have ADD, therefore I'm excused from, appropriate behavior and organization and so on and so forth. I can't say to the IRS, look, I have ADD, so I don't remember to pay my taxes. Well, I've got to figure out a system to get my taxes paid. So you don't want to use the ADD as an excuse, but you do want to use it as an explanation. The reason I forget to take out the trash is not because I'm a bad person who is lazy and refusing to take out the trash. It's because I forget. And this is one of the things that comes with ADD. I forget. I don't have the neurons devoted to remembering to take out the trash that people who have what I call attention surplus disorder have. They have neurons. They would never forget to take out the trash because those neurons light up every time I'm supposed to take out the trash. Those of us who have ADD, we don't have those neurons. So the starting point is to say, rather than feeling ashamed, say, look, I've got a problem, but it's nothing that I did on purpose. I didn't will myself to not have those neurons. It's the way I was born. And so it's not a matter of shame. It's a matter of simply, it's a challenge. What system can I think up to remind me to take out the trash? Or in my own life, when I used to lose my car keys all the time and arrive late for work often, which gets the day off to a terrible start, I simply finally took a basket, a little wicker basket, and put it on a table next to my front door. And then I trained myself like a dog always to put my car keys in that basket. And that basket did the trick. Now I don't lose my car keys, unless one of my kids takes the keys now. But you need to come up with systems. But you won't come up with systems until you get past this terribly depressing negative self-image. You know, when you're depressed, and so many people with ADHD are, when you're depressed, you're not in a problem-solving mode. As my own old friend Priscilla Vale used to say, you know, emotion is the on-off switch for learning and creativity. And if you're in a down, negative, bleak spot, you're not going to think of a basket next to the front door. You're not going to think of some innovative structure that will remind you to get things done. You're just going to beat up on yourself. You're just going to say, I'm bad, I'm a loser, I'm no good. And, you know, it's a terrible way to live, which is why I'm such a big fan of working with people of all ages who have this condition and reminding them that their symptoms are not of their own creation. They didn't decide to be this way. And it's not a failure of the will. It's not a failure of discipline. It's a neurological difference. And if you can get out of the terrible satanic grip of that moral diagnosis that society imposes time and time again, get your act together. Stop being a loser. If you can get out of that and get into the neurological framework as opposed to the moral framework and say, look, my brain is wired differently. Okay, now let's rise to the challenge of figuring out systems that will help me compensate, whether it be getting a coach, whether it be reading a book, whether it be working with your spouse, your parent, your friend, your teacher, your colleague, to develop systems for getting things done. And also, you can get the motivation to do that from taking stock of your talents and strengths. Now, this is my whole career has been based on this, and some people misunderstand me. And finally, Russ Barkley and I got together to dispel the false dichotomy where people were calling me Pollyanna and Russ Darth Vader. And we got together and gave a talk together where we said, no, we're two sides of the same coin. Russ has spent his brilliant career showing how utterly crippling, damaging, and sometimes even lethal ADD can be if you don't deal with it. And I've spent my career showing how spectacular life with ADD can be if you do deal with it. So the analogy that I've come to use is sort of the heart of the strength-based model is if you have ADD, you've got a Ferrari engine for a brain. You've got a really powerful, powerful brain. You've got a Ferrari. But the problem is you've got bicycle brakes. You don't have the braking mechanism to control the power of your brain. And if you think about it, that really explains the symptoms of ADD: distractibility, impulsivity, and restlessness. You can't slow it down. You can't contain it. You can't control it. And I say to kids, but don't worry, I'm a brake specialist, and if we work together, you'll be able to control the power you've got. See, and a Ferrari with no brakes is a dangerous, dangerous instrument. But a Ferrari with brakes wins races, wins championships. And that's really the challenge that people of all ages face who have this condition. The motivation, see, to do the work to strengthen those brakes comes from knowing that if you do it, the sky's the limit. You can become David Neilman and found an airline and go then found another airline. You can become Richard Branson. You can become the many creative geniuses, Nobel Prize winners, Pulitzer Prize winners, CEOs, entrepreneurs, self-made billionaires who have this condition. It's not up for debate. I can name you many people who have succeeded at the absolute heights by taking seriously the notion of strengthening brakes. Now, I hasten to add, if you don't take that seriously, well, then you're looking at the prison population, you're looking at the addicted population, you're looking at the unemployed, the multiply divorced, the very accident-prone, all of that. The dire consequences of not strengthening brakes. You get into lots of accidents, lots of crashes. In order to do the work that needs to be done, you really need to get into that positive mindset where you break the moral diagnosis, replace it with a neurological diagnosis, and then embrace the positives that so often appear with ADHD: creativity, originality, initiative, drive, persistence. These are the explorers, the visionaries. I think they're the people who colonized this country, the people who, if you think about it, back in 1600, who would get in a boat and come over here? You had to be a special kind of person, and our gene pool is loaded with these people, and then in the waves of immigration, people who came over with nothing but a dream to sustain them. And next thing you know, they turned it into a reality. That's the ADD population. So you want to hold that hope out in order, which is a real hope. It's rooted in reality, not in fantasy. That if you put in the work, if you do the extra work that you have to do to build up these brakes, then you can change the world for the better, and as indeed you can. But if you're mired in this place of shame, in this place of just abject fear of how you're going to mess up again, then you're not going to feel the motivation to do the work that needs to be done. It really is of fundamental importance, and I usually start with my patients working on this right away, be they 6 years old or 60 years old, because almost invariably they carry around with them a real negative sense of who they are and what their potential might be. The starting point always is with education, and then creating the right emotional context in which they can work. Tremendously painful part of the ADD experience, but absolutely fixable. I have ADD. I make mistakes all the time. I'm not ashamed by them. I'm annoyed by them. It's annoying to have ADD. But I also remind myself that I've done an awful lot on the positive side. And it's not going to help me any to walk around saying, oh, I screwed up. Aren't I a bad person? I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person. I'm a good person who can screw up. And that, so you don't deny the problem, but you don't make the problem front and center. You make the best side of what you do front and center, and then you work on the problems. And I'm still working on fixing the problems. I'll be working on it till I die, I'm sure. But if you have hope, if you have optimism, and optimism, by the way, is not a superficial attitude. It's a very muscular attitude, a very bold attitude that says, no matter what, I can find a way. I can find the resources to deal with this. Bring it on, life. I'll find a way. And that's usually what people with ADD are doing all the time. They're finding a way. In a sense, it's what all of us are doing. It's what Susan did building up this magazine. It's what anyone who tackles a difficult undertaking has got to have not only the brains, but the guts to hang in there and to find hope and to find reserve. It's very hard to do that if you're living in a context of shame. Try to put that shame aside using the tools I've already mentioned. And when all else fails, I come back to one of my first rules of life, Never worry alone. When you're feeling upset, when you're feeling negative, talk to somebody. Somebody you trust, somebody who can be helpful, somebody who can, take you to a more positive frame of mind, because it's in that positive frame of mind that you can begin to solve problems. Well, so I pause there and
Sure,
take
that's
some
great.
questions.
Yeah, thanks so much. In terms of, talk to somebody, you're reminding me of Sari Solden, who said, you have to find your tribe. You have to find the people who get you and who you can turn to. This seems like great advice. A number of people on the webinar are asking about family members. Lori, how do you deal with family members who just think you're a flake and make up ADD as an excuse? Someone else, at 57, I've accepted my ADHD, but how can I get my husband to believe? He just thinks it's a made-up diagnosis created by drug companies and doesn't understand why if I can focus on something I enjoy, like reading a novel, I can't focus on other things when the dogs are barking and the phone is ringing. And lots of people who are feeling that the people closest to them just don't understand them, and it's very painful, as you can imagine.
Yeah, well, that's a very common situation. And not to toot my own horn, but my books are very good remedies for that, because I wrote my books with a skeptical audience in mind. So I address the husband who thinks it's all nonsense, or the grandparent who says all the kid needs is a kick in the pants. I address those people with respect, and I say, look, you first hear this described, and it sounds like a colossal excuse. But then if you look at the science, you discover that, no, it's actually real, and that not everyone has this condition. And if you do have it, it's ever so much more difficult to sustain focus on tasks that don't interest you. Now, it's hard for anyone, but for those of us with ADD, boredom is like an emergency. We have to change it. I tell the story on myself when I was at a boring lecture as a resident at the Harvard Faculty Club, and the lecturer was so boring, I felt I had to escape, and I was sitting next to a window, so I jumped out the window. Fortunately, the window was on the first floor, and fortunately, none of my illustrious supervisors saw me exit, but I simply had to leave. And very few people would do that, risk putting their physical health and career at stake. But it was like an emergency. I had to get out of that lecture. It was simply too boring. You sit down with the people in your family who love you and say, if you love me, do me the favor of hearing me out. And then because it takes more than a soundbite to explain it. And the answer to the question, why can I not focus doing the dishes and focus on a novel, this is the nature of ADD. We can hyper-focus when we're interested, but when we're not, we literally can't, whereas other people can summon up the ability to focus, and we just can't. But the person has got to get out of the sort of, the arrogance of ignorance, if you will, and say, I know what I'm talking about when I don't have any idea what I'm talking about, and be willing to learn. So give them Delivered from Distraction, or give them one of Russ Barkley's books, or give them, a reliable book. There's a lot of not very good books out there, but if they're willing to sit down and read, the first chapter of Delivered from Distraction is called The Skinny. Read this chapter if you can't read the whole book. So, they don't have to read the whole book, but if they would read enough to understand that this is scientifically valid, this has been reflected in MRIs and genetic studies and twin adoption studies, the condition is real, then they can do a complete turnaround. And I see this with spouses and parents all the time, where they start crying and saying, I can't believe all the bad things I said to him. I can't believe all the sarcasm I've used. I mean, they realize that it's been as cruel as taunting someone, who can't spell, or, as if it were their fault, as if it were their laziness, which it is anything but. It's a very important issue, and you really need to get the people on your family on board. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It does take a willingness to open your mind and to learn.
I think that Driven to Distraction is just a great book for explaining ADHD. And it's also, just let me chime in here, very sort of helpfully written, with each chapter having a set of key points afterwards and takeaways. I mean, it's just, I really recommend it to those of you who are trying to educate your family members. It's a huge help. Some nice people on the webinar who were trying to support their ADHD husband or spouse or child. Children who say, "Why, I wish I weren't born." Husbands who feel terribly shamed. And they're asking, what advice do you have for them as they try to support people with ADHD in their families?
Use the strength-based model. Say, you've got a Ferrari engine with bicycle brakes. Cite famous people. Cite David Neilman, Richard Branson, Thomas Edison. I have, my practice is full of self-made millionaires and billionaires. There are Nobel Prize winners who have it. Just cite people who are movers and shakers, and just as you explain it to them, just say, once we tap into your sweet spot, once we find where you can thrive, you can do the same. You can make a great life for yourself. Now, it is true, it takes a lot of work. Medication alone won't solve the problem. Medication can be a godsend. It can help enormously. But it also takes structure, coaching, finding the right job, finding the right school, getting people on your team, getting people to stop undercutting you, throwing cold water on your every effort, stop standing there with arms folded and looking down on you. You really need the strength-based model, which is accurate. You really need to emphasize. I tell parents all the time, just stop using the term ADD. Tell your kid what it is because he'll hear it. But just start using race car brain with bicycle brakes. And the same thing applies to the adults. These so many of them are entrepreneurs trying to grow a business, and they need to learn to delegate. They need to learn to find someone who has what I call attention surplus disorder. Someone who is good at organization, is good at sweating the details, and that combination of the ADD creative type with the attention surplus detail person, that can grow the business. So it's certainly more than getting on the right medication. It's finding the right help that will allow you to unwrap your gift, that will allow you to develop your talent and reach your potential. Most of the time you can do it. And one of the reasons I love my job is that I see people find new life for themselves all the time. It literally happens in my practice every week. I see another person just saving the marriage, saving the career, saving the place in school, turning things around.
Interesting that you say that, because there are a couple of people on the webinar who are saying they were diagnosed in their 50s or 60s, and are they too old to turn around this attitude, that this voice that they hear in their heads that they're a failure, that they're a loser.
My oldest patient is 86, and he is finally writing the book he'd always wanted to write his whole life long. So the answer is, it is far from ever too late. It is never too late. This man is, and with tears in his eyes, he's saying, I can't believe it. Now I can sit down and write. And before, I had to walk away from the laptop every time I sat down in front of it because I'd get distracted. Now he's writing it, and he's going to die having fulfilled a lifelong dream, whereas otherwise he wouldn't have. So no, 60s, it's never too old.
Great. I think that's true. Anne, who's a non-ADD spouse of a husband with ADD, is really struggling because she feels that her husband's shame and turns into defensiveness and anger, and she's not seeing action on his part to move forward. What's your advice further advice for spouses of ADHD people? She says it's very painful to feel alone and not have the one person you choose to spend your life with be there for you consistently.
Well, it's very painful indeed, and this is where couples therapy can make a huge difference. You really you really need to get on the same page. It's terribly lonely, and almost invariably will lead to bad things if you let that situation continue. So find somebody, find somebody who can sit down with you and talk things through. It's very hard to do it without a third party, because you tend to fight the same battles over and over again. And
Right.
you sort of get polarized.
Yep. Another comment that's recurring here is ADD versus ADHD. With the people who have ADHD feel that the lack of hyperactivity means that they're not a Ferrari, they're more limping along, as one said, more like the engine is limping. What's your feeling on that?
On which I missed the question.
Well, the question is from those who believe that they don't have the hyperactivity that's described in ADHD. They don't have the racing, the Ferrari. That their problem is distractibility and lack of motivation, sort of inertia, and they don't. It's harder for them to come up with a positive scenario. They feel so.
That's where By the way, the Ferrari doesn't mean that you've got hyperactivity. It just means you've got a powerful mind. So you can have ADD without hyperactivity or ADHD without hyperactivity and still have the Ferrari. But when you're in that place where you can't find the motivation, you can't come up with a plan, you feel stuck, that sounds like there's depression as well. And again, you need a coach, you need a therapist, you need someone to what I call prime the pump to say, well, what about this? What about that? And kind of pick you up, cheerlead you. We trivial cheerleading. It's one of the best things you can do, as long as you do it with intelligence. As long as you're not just in a concealed way telling people to shut up. But if you actively believe in that person and kind of pump them, then it'll start to come. And it's sort of like lighting wet firewood. It's hard, but you can get it done as you keep at it, because the negative feelings can take you over so much that you just are sitting there saying, I don't have any ideas. There's nothing I want to do. I'm not good at anything. Don't tell me I've got special talents. I don't. And I'm nowhere. And I'm down in the dumps. I'm a loser. And a lot of people are there, that's how they feel. And so then it's my job to say, okay, I'll meet you where you are. But let me point out some different ways of thinking about it. And never forget a kid I heard about. It was a brilliant teacher who did this, a sixth grader who completely shut down. He said, I'm bad at everything. I'm good at nothing. And so teacher would meet with him now and then, and just she kept meeting with him. And one day an airplane flew by, and he looked out the window, and she said, oh, do you like airplanes? And he said, well, I guess I do. So then she petitioned the Committee on Special Education, said, could we get money to buy him a model for a gas, one of those gas-powered airplanes. And they gave him a special place in the janitor's department to build the airplane. And he took extra time during the year, and then come spring, he'd completed the airplane, and the entire sixth grade class went out to the baseball diamond, and he stood on the pitcher's mound and flew the airplane around the outfield and brought a landing at home plate and got amazing cheers, and his whole life changed. That teacher, thinking of that model airplane, whole life changed. Well, if you can find at any age your version of the model airplane, your version of the thing you want to put your heart and soul into and make it happen, you can do it. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm Pollyanna, because I've seen it happen so many times. I've seen it happen so many times. It really is the case that if you keep at it with the right guidance, with the right help, you don't want to keep trying the same failed plan over and over again. But if you keep at it, you can find your talent. You can find your groove. You can find the thing that will, your version of that model airplane.
That's great. Okay. Can we just go back just to put this issue to rest about ADHD versus ADD? One person posted, said, in his experience, do you agree with this? The H just manifests itself in different ways. So feelings of discontent, racing thoughts, ideas, toxic worry. It's not necessarily hyperactivity. Do you agree with that?
Sure. I mean, the thing about labels is
right.
It sort of becomes a tautology, but you have the symptoms, and then what label you want to put on them really doesn't matter. I mean, I often say ADD or ADHD is just a collection. It's just a name for a collection of symptoms, and you have the symptoms. What you call them is somewhat arbitrary.
Yeah, I think that
unless you're doing research, and then you have to have standards to make a diagnosis.
Right. Some people just get very hung up on ADHD versus ADD, and in my experience,
right,
it's not worth threading that.
No, exactly. It's one of the most common, sort of annoyingly common points of confusion. I wish they'd never. You see, what it is, technically, there's no ADD. It's all ADHD. And then you can have ADHD primarily inattentive, which means ADHD without the H, or you can have ADHD combined type, which is ADHD with the H.
Right. So in any event, you have ADD, right?
The practical point is that the diagnosis often gets missed in people who are not disruptive or hyperactive, whether they be adults or children. And the most notorious are adult women who almost never get diagnosed because they're not disruptive, they're not hyperactive, and they get almost invariably misdiagnosed as depressed. Well, they are depressed, but it's in reaction to the frustrations they feel at underachieving due to the undiagnosed, untreated ADD. And that's where it's of practical significance to know this condition need not include disruptive symptoms.
Right. Okay. Let me turn just a second to the workplace. One thing I just have to say, the number of people who've posted using the description, the word loser, that they're a loser and they feel like a loser. I mean, to your introductory point, it's just really painful to read these comments because of the number of people who are calling themselves losers here in posting. But one person just recently fired from a job that she enjoyed and did very well, working with the elderly. She thought she was well suited for it. She worked well. She was late, and she also had problems with coworkers. But the reason they gave her for firing was that she was tardy, and as a result of that, she was also rejected for unemployment. And she's feeling like a loser, and that's what she wrote down. A number of others who say, my bosses don't really want to hear about ADHD. I've lost numerous jobs, new job, or a person, Dan, with a new job. I don't want to hold on to the shame that I've carried around. Any thoughts on dealing with shame and ADD in the workplace?
Well, ADD in the workplace, I not tell people you have it because most people misunderstand it, and then they'll
don't say anything about it, right?
Yeah, they'll think it means you're wacko and unreliable. So, but the loser thing, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a loser. There's just people who haven't found the right way to bring out the winner inside of them. And the sad part about losing jobs because you're late or that sort of thing is you think, oh my goodness, here we go again, and I just can't take another failure. And so I'm just a loser, which is sort of a way of shutting down. It's a way of saying, why bother? Because it's going to fail anyway. And what that person needs is someone to come along and give them an injection of hope. Say, first of all, I understand how disappointed you are. You have every right to be disappointed. And isn't it a shame that as seemingly a trivial a thing as being on time can cost you your job? And it sucks. You acknowledge that. And you say, but, many people have found a way to pick themselves back up and go get an even better job. And that's the truth. And so you acknowledge the pain. You got to acknowledge that, meet the person where they are. But then you say, honestly, I've known a lot of people, and I haven't had the advantage of being able to say I've known thousands of people who've found a way to, turn that, make lemonade out of that lemon. It's just the amazing thing about hope and collaboration and connection in life that it really can take the worst states of mind and turn them into something positive. But it always begins in connection. Very hard to do it alone. And it's in those alone states that you make big mistakes. It's just, so you begin by reach out to the right person, of course, but And of course, when you're feeling so negative, last thing you want to do is reach out. So, it's insidious, but honestly, I'm one of the few experts that still sees patients every day, and I see them of all ages, and I'm here to tell you, because I've seen it firsthand, that you can go from feeling. I had a woman in my office today who used to say, I don't see any reason to live. And now she's bouncing in, excited and happy about her new project. And I mean, it just does happen.
Wow, that's great.
In a context of connection where people find new energy and success.
Okay. There's an MD on the webinar, Deborah, and she says she treats many adults, especially women, and they appear to be doing well, self-confident, but they get into relationships that are compromising or dangerous. And she's wondering, do you think that women with ADD or ADHD are more vulnerable to dysfunctional relationships because of shame? Is that part of the shame syndrome, and how can that be addressed?
What I've seen is both men and women, we ADDers, and I counsel people about this regularly now. I say, be careful of the relationships you get into, because we with ADD tend to take on train wrecks. We tend to fall for people who need a lot of help. And we're so generous, we're so, we think, well, I can help you. And most of the time you can't, and you go down, you go down rather than bringing the other person up. We tend to take on train wrecks. Both sexes tend to do this. And maybe this doctor is right. Maybe it's more women do it than men, but men do it as well. And so I say, find someone who's stable. Find someone who's more the attention surplus type, and then you can provide the fire and energy and creativity, and he or she can provide the stability and organization. That usually is a better match. The falling for train wrecks, I've seen it happen so often.
Really?
Wow. I can almost predict when someone comes into my office that they have done that.
I think finding help, as you've so well articulated, seems to be clear. Number of people on the webinar who are just asking how to do that. They're either live in a place where they cannot find a psychiatrist or a coach, have a hard time evaluating the ones that are available. What are your thoughts and your advice on how to find a person to work with? Because clearly, for many people who are really have many years of shame, getting help turning that around needs, as you so clearly stated, someone to be in your camp.
Sure. Well, you're doing the right thing already simply by listening to the webinar and subscribe to Attitude. And, there's a whole community online where you can find regular daily chat rooms, interactions of people who are there to help you. Finding a live human being in your area can be more difficult. And I'd also push my books because they're full of practical suggestions. But the live human being, that can be tough to find, but ask around, ask the local medical people. With the internet now, you can just ask the community at large, do you know anyone in my area? In terms of interviewing them, credentials matter far less than track record. So, find out, talk to someone who's seen that person already. Because you can have, the credentials may not be all that impressive in terms of education and degrees, but you've got to imagine this person has a magic touch at helping people build a new life. So interview, if you can, people who've already seen the practitioner, and that's the best test of quality is references and people who worked with that person already. Find someone you like. Don't say, well, he's the best because he's got the most degrees and published the most books and papers. If you can't connect with him or her, then that person is not for you. This is very personal, intimate work, and you're talking about some of your deepest, darkest fears and shames and whatnot, and you want to have someone who you're not going to feel judged by, you're not going to feel looked down upon by. You want to have someone who you really believe is in your corner cheering for you. There's a wonderful line. A famous man was asked once how he'd achieved so much, and he said, because in my mother's eyes, I only saw smiles. And you want to feel that way about the therapist or coach you're working with, that in my therapist's eyes, I only see smiles. Someone who believes in me even when I don't believe in me. And you can find those people. They're out there.
And also, I think, many ADHD coaches, I would just interject, work via Skype nowadays.
Yeah.
I've not personally done that, but apparently it really does work for lots of people. And that allows you to interview people and find the right one, regardless of where they are. And the daughter of a friend of ours has been working via phone for 5 years with someone who's made a huge difference in her life. So I just want to offer that to people. And for coaching, the ACO, the coaching organization, has a wonderful website and coaches available. The Attitude Directory is a great place to find coaches. And if you're in a place with a CHAD chapter, CHAD is a wonderful organization with support group chapters around the country, chadd.org. Look for that to find some support, because I think it's really key to find someone who's on your team. So let me see. There's so many other questions. So hard to read all these people feeling like losers. Oh, painful. Here's the perfectionism. People constantly saying that no matter what they do, they feel it's not good enough. And here's Marta, who said, the day she passed her doctoral dissertation, she went home miserable because she didn't think she'd done as well as she had, and spent the next day feeling regretful. I don't know. I don't know why I do it to myself. And someone else is similarly, asking, how do you deal with this incessant desire to be perfect?
The desire to be perfect.
Yeah, the perfectionism.
Yeah, it's common, particularly in women. And I always say use Julia Child as a role model. She'd drop the fish on the floor and she'd say, "Whoops," and just pick it up and put it back in the pan. Use Julia Child as your role model. I mean, the success so depends on your ability to make mistakes and move on. I wouldn't have written one book if I expected the book to be perfect. It just doesn't happen. So you want to have high standards, but not absurd perfectionistic standards, because you'll just tie yourself up in knots. And probably comes from, I think it's inborn, because I've seen perfectionists whose parents did nothing to instill that whatsoever. They're just born with this sense of, I have to be perfect. More common in females than males, in my experience, and hard to undo, but if you can just try to lighten up a little bit, and just think of Julia Child dropping the fish and saying, "Whoops."
Right. Brett just wanted to say to you that your book, Delivered from Distraction, is his Bible, and he thought it was reading it that gave him the courage after 20 years in marketing to change his career and stoke his entrepreneurial fire and become an ADHD coach.
Oh, thank you so much.
He just wants to thank you. So
thank you, Brett.
Yes.
It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah. I think we'll stop there. This has been incredibly helpful. I think everyone, maybe you want to say some last words, but I really think your key point here is just a positive one. And
it's along the lines of never worry alone, and also to reinforce what you're doing, Susan. It's wonderful, the community you're building, and tell your friends to join this. The more voices we have, what's in the magazine now is excellent, top quality, and really the more we can build this community of many different voices and many different points of view, the less alone people will feel, the more practical solutions they'll get, the more diverse solutions. And Susan's really committed herself to, including being inclusive, and so all different kind of points of view. So tell your friends to join in. Hope comes from connection. Hope comes from the growing community. And truly, we are a community of winners. I want to say, far from feeling shamed, the theme of today's webinar, we should feel proud. I wouldn't trade my ADD for the world. I am thrilled that I've been able to develop the unusual talents I have and been able to help others do the same. To be proud of who you are. Be like my son Jack, who in 6th grade the teacher asked the class to write down adjectives describing themselves, and then she said, "Now circle the 3 that you're proudest of." Jack circled athletic, creative, and ADD. Well, now he's going to be a senior at Elon, and he's an entrepreneur. He's majoring in business, and he's going to be starting businesses. And it's because he's developed the talents that come along with his ADD. So put that shame aside, and open your heart and your living room and your pocketbook, and show the world and be real. Be who you are. When you can do that, what comes back will be really wonderful.
That's great. Thank you so much. And everyone who asked about seeing Dr. Hallowell, he does have 2 centers, one in Sudbury, Massachusetts, and one in New York City. And check out his website, drhallowell.com, for more information. Here at Attitude, just let me point out that we do have a site called ADD Connect, which is a very vibrant community of people exchanging thoughts, incredibly supportive. I'm moved every day when I read what people are writing to one another on ADD Connect. So check that out. You should not be alone. Thanks again, everyone. No, you don't need to pay to belong to ADD Connect. Someone just asked. And thank you to Dr. Hallowell for being here today and for your very positive message. We are grateful. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
For more Attitude podcasts and information on living well with attention deficit, visit attitudemag.com. That's ADDITUDEMAG.com.